David May. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of CID Property Management's online training sessions. Today we're going to be talking about the ABCs of HOAs. There's a lot that we could cover, but we're going to try and keep it to the basics so that you're not going to be bored silly by watching this video. So let's get right down to it. First of all, a homeowners association is nothing more than a group of homes that have been organized into one community, sometimes called a common interest development. The homeowners there own either the units or the lots within the property, and you're all considered members of the association. So the governing authority overriding everything would be the California State and Civil Code. The Davis-Sterling Act, you'll hear about that probably on a more frequent basis than most everything else. But there are other related codes like the Civil Code, Business Professions Code, and so forth that also cover the homeowners associations, or at least parts of it, because it is an incorporated organization. The overriding governing authority is the state law. However, within your own individual community, you also have an authority that in the way of the Articles of Incorporation, your condominium plan if you're a condominium, and then your covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Those were all recorded within your county where you're located beforehand, or with the state in the case of the Articles of Incorporation. The unrecorded documents would have to do with the bylaws, rules and regulations, architectural design guidelines, those sorts of things. Those will also be affected, you will be affected by all of those as well. Now, all those documents are in place. Can you change them? Yes, you can. Usually takes a pretty big vote though, 51 to 90%, depending on the governing documents, and the members to change the bylaws or the CC&Rs. But the board of directors can just simply change by a vote, the rules and regulations or the architectural design guidelines, those sorts of things. So when you did purchase your home, though, you have to remember that you did agree to abide by all of these laws, the rules, regulations, the CC&Rs, everything. You agreed to abide by those. So California state law fully backs that, and you need to know that that is on the association side. Now, the purpose of an HOA is to maintain, protect, and enhance the value of your community. Pretty straightforward idea. And national studies have consistently shown that people that live in homeowner associations are generally more happy living there than they are in non-HOA communities. And for a lot of reasons like what you see on the screen, people like living there to avoid those sorts of problems. And so while life is indeed better in an HOA, they can't solve every conflict or issue that might arise within your community. Some of these things go way beyond the scope and authority of the governing documents. So if you do have any questions along the way, please feel free to give us a call. We'll help you out. I mentioned the board of directors. They're in charge of your association. They govern you. They're like your town council or the state legislature, that sort of thing, only on a local basis. The board conducts the business of the association at their monthly business meetings, where they'll talk about things that have to do with the business end of it, governance, the community. Those three areas of business, governance, and community. Business has to do with the administrative, financial, maintenance issues like clubhouse or anything finances and so forth, as you can see there. The governance has to do with the enforcement of the community's documents, rules and regulations, those sorts of things. And then the community has to do with the newsletters, the website, conflict resolution, any appeals by homeowners, those sorts of things, as you see there. But the final responsibility does rest with the board of directors. It's not the management company. We just simply carry out the policy of the board. We do what they ask us to do. Essentially, we try to keep them on track and stay within the confines of the California state law and the governing documents of their association. However, The board does make the final responsibility. The buck does, in fact, stop there with the board. So who's in charge and how do they get there? I mentioned the board of directors. Well, most boards consist of about 5 board members, sometimes as few as 3 on up to 9. They are elected at their annual meeting, and that's where you'll be notified ahead of time and get notice of the annual meeting. Nomination forms will usually be included in that, and you can go ahead and run for the board, fill out that nomination form, send it back in, and once we get all those in, we'll send out the ballots. These are secret ballots. You have to follow the process as is spelled out there, so make sure you do that. Make sure you get the ballot in because it's really important. There are quorum requirements for your community. Every community has that. Usually it's 25 to 51%. And so that's a pretty large amount of the homeowners that need to get we need to get responses from. So please send it in. It really does matter. Don't just toss it out when you get it. And you can nominate from the floor and write in ballots as well, but the best way to do is fill out that nomination form. Now after the election, you'll have, the board will be now in place. They'll elect from within themselves the board officers, the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. Those are the officers of the association, board, and so that's who's then in charge, along with the other directors. But get involved. It is important. Whether you do run for the board or you get on a committee, do make a difference in your community. Many hands make light work. It does matter. Just a couple notes on your management company, us. We are the board's contact with you and vice versa. Our primary contact with the board is the board president, and we take our direction from the board president, not from the homeowners, but from the board and through the president, him or herself. So we also communicate, though, with you in terms of email, phone calls, regular mail, various letters and so forth that come out of our office are generated. So when you get these things, take a look at them briefly. You don't have to, I mean, just take a look at them. That's all we're asking. We also work with the vendors within the community. We make sure that they are all qualified, licensed. Their insurance is all in place, whether they're doing the landscaping or doing the pool service or anything else that's going on around the community. We do have specific duties that we are obligated to perform per our management contract. So just know that we don't set the policy, the board sets the policies. We only advise the board and help them to carry it out. The board business meetings, or the monthly board meeting as they call it, the purpose of that is to conduct the business of the association. And so the meetings might be held either at our office or at the community center or various places around the community, and it will be determined ahead of time as to how often you do it. The board has it. You'll get notified. It might be posted. You might get something in the mail, that sort of thing. So what you'll get also, and will be posted somehow, will be the board agenda. And if you look on this agenda here, sample agenda, you can see the number 2 item is the open forum. So let's talk briefly about that. The time for the homeowners to address the board of directors is during the open forum session. You have about 3 minutes or so to say whatever's on your mind. The board's not obligated to respond, but they may choose to. But they can't make any decisions based on something that you might bring up. So just know that it's just for the homeowner to bring items to the attention of the board. And then once that open forum session is done, then it's time for the business of the board. The board has to get down and take care of the business at hand. Homeowners are only allowed to observe the proceedings, not allowed to participate. So just you can sit there, watch the board meeting, and be informed, keep informed that way. The board follows basic parliamentary procedures to keep the meeting going orderly and on schedule. After the board meeting, they break for executive session. The board is obligated to only talk about a few things. As you can see here, litigation, member discipline, personnel matters, a couple of others. So just know that there are certain limited things that the board can discuss during executive session, and that's it. And if you want some more details on this, watch our video. Great little video, and so that'll get you a lot of information in regards to how the board meetings are actually done on conducting a board meeting. Architectural guidelines in the review process. Everybody wants to come home from work and look around the community and go, hey, this looks pretty good. I'm really glad I live here. And so that's important. And so the enforcement of the architectural guidelines and other rules and regulations within the community is important. So in terms of the architectural guidelines, though, you should be familiar with them. Know that they are published in the CC&Rs and the architectural guidelines, and so you'll be able to get additional detail with that. Follow the process, please. If you're going to do anything like paint, landscape, any sort of construction, fill out one of these architectural forms, change forms. You'll get it from our office. We'll send that out to you, and we'll help you get that in. Just know that it's going to take some time for this to get done. Members that are on the Architectural Review Committee or the ARC are all volunteers, just like the people on the board. And so it does take time. They have to take time out of their regular personal schedules for taking care of board business or association business. So please be patient on the whole matter. Whatever you do, don't start work until you have the approval in hand from us. You can speed that approval along by doing certain things, filling out the whole form. Make sure you give complete details, whether it's on drawings, specifications, dimensions, as you see here, all these things. The more information the board has, the better, so that they can make an informed decision, or the ARC. And if you happen to live in a condominium, you need to know that you have even more restrictions in regards to being able to make changes. So all buildings are pretty much owned by the association. You own the airspace. The association owns the buildings and the grounds and everything else. So if you're going to make a change to your patio, to your front door, garage door, any of those sorts of things, you need to make sure before you do any painting or put up a satellite dish, fill out the ARC form. And whatever you do, if you're going to do anything structurally on the inside, you need to get approval first. It's generally frowned upon, any structural changes, because it can affect the integrity of the building. And unauthorized changes that you may do that are need to be put back the way they were, it could be enforced that you'd have to pay for those changes to put it back to the way it was. Let's talk about association finances for a minute. The HOA dues, the operating and pay for the operating and reserve expenses. So the operating expenses have to do with the landscaping, the management fees, utilities, and all those monthly expenses that come in. Reserve expenses have to do with longer term things. So you'll have to set money aside. The association sets money aside for those things. So how are those dues assessed then? Well, the treasurer is responsible for setting up the budget. You might get some help from other people, but at the end of the day, they're responsible for it. The board approves it, and he does this by taking a look at all the previous expenses and looks at what may be coming up and new stuff, and then he figures out on a per unit basis how much that's going to cost. They do have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they take care of all expenses, and so that's why dues increases come in on a regular basis. And it's unfortunate, but that's how it is. Everything continues to rise in price. Special assessments, if there's not enough money, it's possible that there could be a special assessment that the board will have to put forth. They can do that just by a board vote on 5% special assessment, but for anything greater than that, you, the members, would have to approve that. So you are, though, legally obligated to pay those once they come in, and there's just simply no getting around it, whether it's the late fees or regular dues, or all that has to be paid, and whether or not you even receive a statement from us, you still are obligated to pay. And we try to make it easy for you to pay, though. As you can see here, you've got you can send in a check. you bill pay, service online, and that sort of thing. Give us a call if you have any questions about it, how to pay your dues. And if you do happen to get behind, please give us a call. We don't want you to get behind. The association will work with you. Contact us. Don't ignore it. The problem won't go away. So maybe if we can work out a payment plan of some sort, we'll do that, but just let us know. Talk about rules enforcement. We are the ones that go around and do the rules enforcement. We look and make sure that the covenants, the rules, all that sort of thing are being adhered to. We'll send out courtesy notices, and even if you have a rental home, you need to know that your tenant you're responsible, really. As the homeowner, you're responsible, and we will send any notices to you, the homeowner. So make sure your tenants get a copy of the CC&Rs and the rules so that they know what's expected. And if something's not complied with in terms of the rule or CC&R violation, it could move on to a notice of fine and hearing. You'll need to come in front of the board and discuss that with them. I mean, it could even go as high as legal counsel. We don't want that. We're just simply looking for compliance to the rules and regulations. That's what everybody agreed to when they moved in, and that's what we expect, and that's what the association expects. Sometimes you'll see, however, a violation that seems to continue on, nothing's being done, and enforcement proceedings do take time. The rule of law has to be strictly followed, and sometimes it simply takes time to do it. And there are also those people that won't comply. They just refuse to for whatever reason. So just know that we are working on it. Please be patient, and that is the best that we can do. The HOA is not a sheriff. Some things are even beyond the scope of the association, and they have nothing really to do with the association. It's a civil matter. So you just have to know that. Well, that's about it. Then keep informed. You've done your first big step by watching this video. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Stay involved in your community. Go to the board meetings, get on the board, read your newsletter, whatever it may be. Volunteer for a committee. It all matters, it all counts, and we appreciate your time and effort in regards to making your community a better association, because it takes people like you to stay involved and get involved to keep it that way. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.